This little girl has lost 2 of her fingers, and she's been unable to really get treated at the hospital. But perhaps the worst story is over here. This woman lost 4 of her children inside the initial quake, and then lost her 5th and final child at the hospital. These 2 people are pretty much holding her down when she gets up and starts to scream. It's a real example of someone who's been driven to the point of insanity by the suffering and is really not getting much help outside her immediate family.
All these rescue workers who are coming in, you have to be self-supportive. So you bring your own water, you bring your own sleeping bag. I mean, how does it work for you and the rescue workers, for all of you?
Yeah. Well, I think for us, we're just lucky. I mean, I've got a guy, Correspondent, with me who is making a live shot run off a car battery with just what he can carry on his back. But for the rescue workers and for people who might not be used to situations like this, I think it's an amazing challenge. I was thinking about what you said yesterday, how you have to bring your own environment. And, you know, other than gravity and air, I mean, it is like going to the moon, because you have to have everything from the vehicle to the gasoline to the food, and I think in the real short term you're going to need security here. And we've seen how difficult it is to move around a place once you need security. Security here is a game changer. Right now I'm seeing goodwill on both sides. I'm seeing heroic efforts at the airport to try and bring stuff in. But that will, we've seen it in the past, you've seen it in New Orleans, can change if there is a perception, right or wrong, that security is an issue. That's going to slow everything down at a point when really to slow things down is going to mean death for a lot of people.
You know, when in the past when I've seen these situations, Steve, there's a shock that so many people you know are dead, and people go through that in a sort of together way and get by it. But as the days goes by, the oldest and most infirm and the youngest who have the greatest need start dying around them. And that's when the desperation seems to set in.
Yeah, the desperation is like something, it's really hard to imagine. You know, I have a pretty thick skin and I've seen a lot of stuff and can ignore a lot of stuff, but when we were sitting there this morning and just watching that woman wail, you know, there is nobody for her. Her husband's just trying to hold her down on a mattress in a field just from going insane from her loss. That kind of loss is horrific in any culture, but in a culture where you're utterly where you're alone, it just makes it all the more difficult.
Steve Harrigan, amid it all, with folks on top of a pile that includes human remains below and very, very difficult days ahead. I think alone might have been the word. It's hard from a couple of thousand miles away to look at a woman who's lost 4 children in an earthquake and the 5th children in the aftermath, who has nothing and no prospects for anything. It's hard enough to watch it from here. Imagine watching it from there and smelling it. If you've ever been to a horrible disaster, if you've been unfortunate enough to do so, it's often that sense that people elsewhere cannot have that brings you back to that place. For instance, New York, 9/11, it had a smell. It was metallic. It was fuel. It had its own thing, and you'll never forget it. New Orleans had its own thing similarly. Haiti is going to be, for everybody who covered it and everybody who lived through it, the smell of death. And it will not go away for weeks or months or years, because you see the process of excavating. It's very slow. And quite frankly, I'm told the looters follow in behind. And the uncovering of the dead becomes a show, with a lack of anything else to do and a lack of water and food. This is a story where the pictures are going to look the same over the days ahead, and we're all going to get bored with it, because we always do. And then they'll all be truly alone, and then they'll really need us. We're off to Bill Hemmer at the airport, where they are doing all they can to get relief supplies in to people who badly need it, and we'll join him live. That's next.